Dude, it's rolling.
Is this novel a realistic portrayal of teenage parenthood? Does the story glamorize or romanticize teen parenting? Do you think it's possible to successfully balance high school and parenting?
No.
How does Hanging On to Max compare to the films we watched in class and other movies and TV shows you've seen?
I think this was kind of a realistic portrayal, because like page like 94 to 95, that lady like glared at them for feeding the ducks. But so like it kind of gets like that social aspect, but also it kind of shows two different situations, like someone who comes from a family with money and someone who comes from a family without money, well, without a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with that. It kind of shows like it's not just okay. It shows more of like how the world will react to it, and not just like them. So, like when they're in the store, they ask, "Oh, is this your brother?" That's what you would assume because there's a young dude with a baby or a kid, so you assume it's like babysitting or like brothers and sisters. So I like the. It's a pretty truthful. Like this can happen.
I thought that it was realistic, but like to an extent, I think obviously in real life it would be a lot more. But like page 23 is talking about Sam has a list and like getting Max to sleep at 9 o'clock and then drink out of a cup and then the nap schedule. It just like shows how much there is to do, and like with the drinking out of a cup thing, that it like shows that Sam is thoughtful too, because there are like certain developmental things that children like need to achieve as they grow up, and like Sam is aware of that.
Yeah, I agree
with Rachel and Honey because I think there's an even balance between teen pregnancy at this time and kind of glamorizing or romanticizing their relationship, because it starts off page 1 with he wakes up in the middle of class and we didn't really understand why, but then we realize he's super tired from always looking after Max and how he's really struggling kind of to balance school and having a child. Like it's not an easy thing, but then with his relationship with Claire, I think it shows like you can still have relationships, but I think it's a little too much for this book because it'd be just so much to handle as a teen.
Yeah, I agree with
Who wants to talk to them? Tony just
No, I was talking when everybody else did.
Alright, so
I haven't been exposed to it, but I've seen people finish school as a teenager parent. But I've also seen people drop out of school because they couldn't handle both giving their baby, they couldn't handle school and the baby, so giving that baby wasn't an option. Just like he said, Sam was on the edge. Page 1, he balancing school and Max, he was falling asleep on stuff. And then page 4, Sam says he had a bad night, and his teacher basically was like, everybody has a bad night. I don't know, it was like another layout, like page 1, it was the same thing kind of.
I agree with that. I think it depends on the situation, and sometimes people can handle it, but it's also really hard. Like a lot of us have a hard enough time balancing like school and like jobs and sports, and he has a really hard time. But I think that in some cases it works out. On page 23, it says Max didn't fall asleep again until 11. I spent the next 2 hours in the kitchen trying to work on the English paper, but I only got a paragraph. So it kind of shows even like when he does get the time, it's hard for him to focus because he's so tired and had a lot on his plate.
I agree with Megan that it is very situational, and I think one thing that's hard to keep in mind is like these kids have a lot of resources. Like they're in an alternative school with daycare, and they're like getting all of that in school. Like in real life, people may not have as many resources. They may not have that alternative school. They may not have access to a daycare. They may have to rely on their family members to watch their kids all day. And I just think that, like, yeah, this is possible, but for some people it can be a lot worse or a lot better.
I agree with Emma. It is.
Oh, you
I agree with Emma because I believe it is possible, but on page 4 it talks about how like it
says sorry for falling asleep, and that was Sam talking to the teacher, and it just shows that like he was tired from staying up with Max, but he's also so good with math, so it's possible it's just hard and you get tired from it.
I kind of think that this book was fairly realistic, and I don't think that it romanticizes or glamorizes it being a teen parent at all, because throughout the whole book, you hear Sam's thinking, not saying, that he wishes that he could be a normal teen and not have to deal with the responsibilities of being a parent.
I agree with what Rachel and Nee were talking about way back, long time ago. I feel like it was a good portrayal of teen parenthood, because it like showed like society's view of them too. Like when people kept asking Sam if he was like at the grocery store, when that lady asked him, "Are you helping your mom out?" Like he was like embarrassed, and he said, "Yes, I am helping my mom." Like he didn't want to admit that his own kid was or that it was Max's own kid. So.
Along with that, like it does show societal aspects, but also like with Sam himself, like I think that he's just has so much to do, he can't even organize his thoughts. And he's like page 180, he says, and I thought how weird it was to think you absolutely knew something, to be absolutely certain, and then to realize that you really didn't know anything at all. And I'm not exactly sure what he was referring to, but I think that just shows like how confused he is, and like that's justified because he has a kid and he's only a teenager.
I think it is possible to balance high school and parenting, because, well, especially if you have a lot of support like Claire, her family loves the baby and they support her very well. I think it's a little harder for Sam because obviously his dad doesn't really take care of the baby at all or support him or anything like that. He's kind of not even really a dad. He just, yeah.
I feel like you could successfully balance it out, but I balance high school and parenting out, but I feel like it really depends on how your life is. Like, if you don't have like the financial, because if you got to pay for daycare while you're in school, or if you don't have a parent that can look after your kid here and there, or it really depends on your whole situation in your life. It could definitely be done. It takes a lot of effort, and you got to put a lot of work into it, and you got to have a good time management.
I agree with Tony and Ian. Like, it's very possible for this to happen, or for it to work to balance parenting and high school, but I don't think it's the ideal situation to raise a child in. And I think Sam realizes this, and that's why he put Max up for adoption. Like, he wants what's best for them, and he knew that if he could get into college, he'd have a better life. And Max, if he could get into a good family, he'd have a better life too. So I think it's definitely possible for it to happen, and it happens all the time in the real world. But it's just, I think if like having a child as an adult or older age, it'd be a much better situation.
I agree with what Ian and Jensen said about Claire's situation. Like she said, yeah, my parents are always taking care of Emily. Like I really don't have that much time to see her. So when you have all that time to do homework for high school, it's a lot easier, but I don't really think that's a realistic portrayal of teen parenthood like across the country, because not many people have that situation.
I think if you can compare this.
We only got 7 minutes, so we gotta go to the last question.